real scary story of Robert the doll that inspired Child's Play movies. The Gift. It was 1904 in Key West, Florida, when Robert Eugene Otto, a young boy from a wealthy family, received a peculiar gift from one of the family's servants. The servant, rumored to practice voodoo, handed Eugene a handmade doll. It was nearly the size of a small child, dressed in a sailor suit that Eugene himself had once worn. The doll's face was unervingly human, with beady black eyes and a stitched smile that seemed to stretch too wide. Eugene was thrilled and decided to name the doll Robert after himself. From that day on, Eugene and Robert were inseparable. He spoke to the doll constantly, even insisting that everyone else address him as Gene so that Robert could have his name. At first, his parents found it endearing, just the whimsical imagination of a child. But soon, they began to notice strange occurrences. The first signs. Late at night, Eugene's parents would hear muffled conversations coming from his room. At first, they assumed he was talking to Robert, but as they listened more closely, they realized there were two distinct voices. One was Eugene's, but the other was deeper, raspier, and far too mature for a child. Later on, objects in the house began to move on their own. Furniture would topple over without explanation. Plates would shatter on the floor, even though no one was near them. When confronted about these incidents, Eugene always had the same answer. Robert did it. One morning, Eugene's mother walked into his room and screamed. Every piece of furniture had been overturned, and toys were scattered across the floor. In the center of the chaos sat Robert, propped up against the bed with his beady eyes staring directly at her. The growing fear. As Eugene grew older, the strange events continued. Although he became an accomplished artist and moved away to study in New York and Paris, he insisted on keeping Robert with him. His friends often remarked on how unsettling the doll was. Its expression seemed to change depending on who was looking at it. When Eugene returned to Key West with his new wife Annette in 1930, they moved into his childhood home on Eaton Street. Annette immediately disliked Robert. She claimed she could feel its eyes following her whenever she entered a room where it sat. Eugene dismissed her concerns and insisted that Robert stay in their bedroom. "He inspires me," he said as he worked on his paintings late into the night. But Annette couldn't shake her unease. She began hearing footsteps in the hallway at night when Eugene was asleep beside her. Sometimes she swore she heard giggling, soft but sinister, coming from Robert's corner of the room. The turning point. One stormy night, Annette woke up to find Eugene standing at the foot of their bed, staring blankly at her with Robert cradled in his arms. "Eugene?" she whispered nervously. "He doesn't like you," Eugene said flatly before turning and walking out of the room. The next morning, Annette demanded that Robert be locked away in the attic. Reluctantly, Eugene agreed but warned her that it might anger him. From then on, things only got worse. Loud banging noises echoed from the attic at all hours of the night. Neighbors reported seeing someone or something moving past the windows of the supposedly empty attic room. One neighbor even claimed they saw Robert staring down at them with glowing eyes. The new owners, Eugene, passed away in 1974, and Annette followed 2 years later. The house was sold to Myrtle Reuter, who discovered Robert locked away in the attic. Curious about its history, she decided to keep it as a quirky decoration. But Myrtle quickly regretted her decision. Guests who visited her home often commented on feeling uneasy around Robert. Some claimed they saw its expression change or heard faint whispers when no one else was around. One day, Myrtle's 10-year-old daughter came running downstairs screaming that Robert had tried to hurt her. She claimed she'd seen him move on his own and felt his tiny hands wrap around her neck while she slept. Terrified, Myrtle donated Robert to the East Martello Museum in Key West in 1994. The museum. At first, museum staff thought nothing of the doll's eerie reputation. It was just another exhibit for curious tourists. But soon they began experiencing strange phenomena themselves. Lights flickered whenever Robert was nearby. Visitors reported hearing giggles or seeing shadows dart across the room where he was displayed. Some claim their cameras malfunctioned when they tried to take photos of him without asking for permission first. The museum staff decided to place Robert inside a glass case inscribed with protective symbols in an attempt to contain whatever malevolent energy surrounded him. The curse. Despite these precautions, stories of misfortune followed those who disrespected Robert or failed to ask for his permission before taking photos. Visitors reported car accidents, broken bones, job losses, divorces, even deaths shortly after encountering him. One man wrote a letter to the museum apologizing for mocking Robert during his visit. He claimed that since then, he'd lost his job and been involved in multiple accidents. To this day, letters continue to pour into the museum from people begging for forgiveness or thanking Robert for sparing them after showing him respect. The legacy. Robert remains one of Key West's most infamous attractions, a chilling reminder that some objects are better left untouched. His glass case sits prominently in the East Martello Museum, where visitors are warned not to underestimate him. Every now and then, museum staff hear faint giggles echoing through empty halls late at night or find objects mysteriously moved near his display case. And if you ever visit Robert yourself, don't forget to ask for permission before snapping a photo. You wouldn't want him following you home. If you enjoyed this true horror story FO Robert the Doll, then do subscribe to Horror Vault to watch our upcoming real horror stories soon.